Hello, everyone. My name is Gitika Gorthy, and today I am very honored and excited to be joined by the Columbia Space Initiative team. The Columbia Space Initiative is a group of students and professors dedicated to the pursuit of knowledge in near space and beyond. I am so honored to talk with them about how they got into the program, what excites them about space, and their future career goals into the aerospace industry, as well as their current projects, because I heard that they're doing some really cool stuff. So let's just get into it. Thank you guys so much for being here and joining us today and sharing your passions as well as inspiring the next generation. Yeah, so before we kind of get started, could you guys please provide like a brief introduction of yourselves as well as like your role as a part of the Columbia Space Initiative?
Sure, I can get us started. Hi, everyone. My name is Swati, and I'm a final year student in my undergraduate career. I study astrophysics in Columbia University. And in the Columbia Space Initiative, I've held a number of different titles, but at the moment, I am the co-lead of the project that we're working on, all of us here today, which is an experiment named Carmen that's flying to the International Space Station. And before that, I served as the president of the Columbia Space Initiative and also led a few other different missions and projects throughout my time as a student here.
Awesome.
Hi, everyone. My name is Theo, and I'm a sophomore in Columbia College looking to study computer science. I'm the current co-director of Outreach and Operations for Columbia Space Initiative, as well as the Outreach Lead and a Protocol Biologist for the SPOCS mission, which is the International Space Station mission that Swati just mentioned. In my role, I help to navigate our partnerships with both schools in our local community and with external sort of partners, media organizations, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll be very excited to talk about that in a bit.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds really cool.
Hey everyone, my name is Alfonso. I am a senior in SEAS. I study mechanical engineering, and I co-lead together with Gaurav the mechanical payload design of our SPOCS mission. Fundamentally, what we do is we make mechanical products that will host our experiments and will control our experiments, as well as manufacturing them and producing them in such a way that the mission will eventually succeed, hopefully. And our role requires designing and analyzing through both software applications and physical testing our products as well.
Wow, I'm excited to learn more about it.
Hi guys, my name is Gaurav. I'm a graduate student at Columbia University studying mechanical engineering. At SPOCS, I and Alfonso, we are the co-leads for the MechE sub-team. So in MechE, what we do is we start with the basic designing of a product, of an object. Then we use some simulations to see how it will look, how it will function. And then the last step is getting that thing manufactured. So that's my role in the club. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. As you can see, they have very diverse backgrounds. I'm really curious how they kind of came together as a group. But before we get into that, a lot of you guys were mentioning the SPOCS mission, which is what you guys are currently working on. So could one of you guys tell us, what is the importance of this mission and what is it specifically trying to accomplish?
Absolutely, I can answer this question. So our project is sent up in a pretty small box, 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters. And the goal of our project is to study antibiotic resistance, which is an area of specific interest to NASA for future long-term space flights, because we don't know how bacteria interact both with humans and also with other microorganisms in space. And our project is focused on trying to understand how bacteria grow differently and respond to antibiotics in space. So our specific project innovates in that we take not just one bacterium, but two bacteria together, the species Staphylococcus aureus and also Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which are two really important organisms for spaceflight because we either see them growing abundantly on surfaces of the International Space Station and rockets, or in the case of Pseudomonas aeruginosa, it was actually the cause of an astronaut infection during Apollo 13. And we take these bacteria, we see what happens not only when they're just growing in space versus on Earth, but also seeing how they interact with each other. So on Earth, we can see that they have different kinds of interactions. Sometimes they will work mutualistically and they'll help each other become more dangerous and disease causing. And sometimes they turn against each other and become sort of canceling each other out. And our interest is in seeing how they'll interact with each other, because when we study things, microbiology in space, we often find that dozens of organisms can be growing in the exact same space. And in order for us to be able to properly treat astronaut infections in space, it's important for us to know not only how antibiotics will be effective in treating infections of one bacterium, but also what can happen if there are multiple co-infections happening at the same time.
Wow, that's really cool, because I'm really interested in the intersection between biology and space as well. So that's awesome. How will you guys be monitoring this bacteria and how it interacts with each other? Will you guys have something on the mission itself, or are you going to bring it back down to Earth and then analyze it somehow?
I can take that one. Our mission doesn't have any planned astronaut interaction, so we will be performing all of the experiments on Earth in terms of the biology of it. What we do get during the mission will hopefully be camera footage and video footage from inside of the actual payload, so that we'll be able to monitor the growth of some of the colonies which we're examining, and some of the combinations of the different colonies. In terms of the experiments that we have planned once the payload comes back to Earth, we'll be doing a lot of transcriptomic analysis, so RNA-seq analysis, DNA-seq analysis, some proteomic analysis, to really understand what molecular mechanisms are changing as a result of their spaceflight and their exposure to microgravity. And then also understanding through a whole bunch of phenotype assays, such as Kirby-Barrett diffusion, antibiotic testing, et cetera, understanding exactly whether the bacteria have become more pathogenic as a result of these molecular changes, and whether they are now more resistant to the antibiotics than they were before the spaceflight.
Wow, yeah, and that kind of similar to like some of the work that I did last summer at NASA Ames Research Center. And do you think your research could have applicability into understanding certain gene functions in humans, or is like the sample you guys are using very different from the human genes? I'm just curious. Is there like are you guys planning on translating that research?
I was actually very happy to go to the NASA Gene Lab Analysis Working Group workshop sort of symposium last week and hear about all of the different work and speak to a lot of the researchers. So our work is going to be one of the first 5 sort of comparable data sets in terms of these meta-analyses of RNA-seq analyses. So I believe there was a paper in 2018 from the microbe analysis working group, which looked at the first 3 data sets. And so we're definitely going to be contributing a lot to that specific mission. In terms of understanding its human genes, we are working currently with a researcher at the University of Tennessee to design a phagocytosis analysis, where in essence, the bacteria, once they've been returned to us, we will send some there, and he will design an assay where the bacteria will interact with neutrophils, and we will understand whether these molecular changes cause the bacteria to now be toxic to the neutrophils. Obviously, the neutrophils are the cells within our body that are meant to protect us and design us, or whether the neutrophils will still be able to overwhelm these bacteria that have returned from space and will be able to digest them and neutralize them as is proper. So we do plan to understand what their effect is in humans and on human phenotype function, but not in terms of we're not doing a dual-seq experiment to understand what exactly the molecular changes would be within those human cells. It's more of a phenotypic experiment.
Wow, that's really, really cool, because I feel like that's going to open a lot of new doors to very cool research. And so I can obviously see the passion coming out of the screen. So this is a question for all of you guys, which is what sparked your interest to join the Columbia Space Initiative, or really just, I know that Swati is majoring in astrophysics. So what kind of led you guys into this space realm? I'm just curious. Maybe one of you guys can start us off with that.
maybe I can get us started. So I have always loved space since my childhood. One of the really cool things, I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and my parents very frequently used to take me to the Johnson Space Center in Houston for summer breaks or on school vacations. And I was really inspired by all of the things that I saw there, and particularly that Space Center is focused on sort of human-based space flight and space travel. And that always resonated with me because there was that connection of not only studying something that's so abstract from us, but also having that human connection. And so while I was visiting the Johnson Space Center, learning about astronauts like Sunita Williams and people like that, who not only were accomplishing amazing things, but looked like me, was really inspirational. And then in my school education, I worked on projects like in my Science Olympiad team, I would work on building bottle rockets and different things like that. So that really led me along the path of aerospace and space science more generally, and I've stuck with it ever since.
Wow, that's actually really similar to how I got into space, which is really funny. Like because I live in Virginia, very close to Goddard Center. I used to go there all the time at the visitor center, and so that's really sparked my interest. And also, I used to build model rockets in middle school, so very similar parallels. So that's awesome to hear.
I can go next. So I study mechanical engineering. I mean, I love machines, I love cars, I love planes. I love everything that has to do with mechanical interaction and forces and stresses and energy. So I initially was more interested in the automotive world, and it was up to 2019, even though I was always kind of eager to learn more about space. But I have met a couple of people that really inspired me here at Columbia. So that's the reason why I joined CSI, because I wanted to get more involved with the aerospace and specifically the space industry, as the potential for development in the next 30, 50, 100 years in that sense, specifically for mechanical engineers, it's extremely prolific, and therefore I thought it would be great for me to get exposed to this to this universe, literally. So I have been exposed to the rockets projects at Columbia as well as SPOCS mission, and I decided that I want to make that my final career, because I'm just really passionate about it.
Yeah, that's awesome that you were able to combine your kind of two interests together. And I would have to say the same that you were saying about how much space is going to change just mechanically and engineering wise in the next 30 years. It's crazy. And seeing how space is starting to get commercialized and, very advanced, more rocket launches up, I can definitely see the technological advancements. So engineering is going to change drastically. I can't even imagine how in like 2 decades. So that's awesome.
I can go next. So while I'm a graduate student, so while applying for graduate schools, I was excited about working on different projects, joining different clubs. So I had a few friends who had already done their graduation from Columbia, and they had told me about this thing like Columbia Space Initiative. We also have a professor who is a former astronaut. So the whole prospects of applying to Columbia and then joining Columbia Space Initiative was quite interesting. I joined CSI last year, and since then I slowly started working with SPOCS. Now I'm also kind of involved with the rocketry team. And as an international student, this is like one of my avenues wherein I can actually go out there and actually work on space related things. So it's quite interesting and exciting for me.
Yeah, and Gaurav, I have a follow-up question because you did say you were an international student. Has it, I'm curious, just was a transition, was something in wherever you came from, was that passion started there and then it kind of grew in Columbia, or did you kind of grow that passion here at Columbia? And also, how is it like being an international student?
Yes, so as a child growing up, I was always interested in space. Someone in 4th grade had gifted me this book about space exploration, and since then the whole thing kind of got ignited. But never I had thought I would be at Columbia working with astronauts or such great people, or working coordinating directly with people from NASA. So that has been really exciting. Yeah, I don't feel there's like much of a differentiation between an international student in the club, because I believe there are a few more international students as well, and it's really nice.
Yeah, I love the international collaboration. I know like space was always like viewed as like, oh, a very governmental thing, but now it's starting to become more like collaborative and more together research. So I'm really excited for the future. And hopefully for the Mars mission, there is some sort of international collaboration. I think that would be cool. And lastly, but not least, Theo.
Sure. What I'd like to add, most of all, my background was originally in scientific computing, just on sort of the general principles and applicability of solving big scale data problems, which eventually led me to bioinformatics, genomics, that kind of analysis. I've worked in a research laboratory for the past 3 years, moved between a few. And what I think this conversation, or what I'd like to add to this conversation, is that really there's a wide opening for all kinds of skill sets and people and diversity within the space industry, and more specifically within these kinds of space projects and mission projects. You know, at the start of the project, I thought, well, I'm going to learn a lot about engineering. I'm going to really, have to pull up my bootstraps and figure out all of these various components. But the fact that it's been such a collaborative process, and the engineers, Alfonso, Gaurav, everyone else who works on the team, they're so wonderful in helping to explain it and bring me through. And then I can, help explain and bring them through the biology and the bioinformatics and all of the various different experimental components. So no matter sort of what your interests are, no matter what your skill sets are, space is a completely new environment. And what you bring to the table and what you want to research and understand and experiment, you can make that happen with a team, with a collaborative effort and organization.
Wow, that was beautifully said. That's something that I really advocate for, which is like space is its own place. Like you can bring in any career or any skills that you have. Like you can be artistic, you can be scientific, you can be, like business oriented, politics oriented. Literally everything has a role in the space industry. So, that's what I love about it. Yeah, and so my next question for you guys, and I'm going to probably gear this a little bit towards Swati just because she is a female in STEM, which is, did you ever find difficulty being a part of the aerospace industry, or maybe, convincing others that you want to major in astrophysics just because of who you are, like, because you're a female? Did you ever find those stereotypes holding you back, or have you ever felt like the imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And for anyone of sort of a minority background coming into a field like STEM, where there is such an imbalance of sort of who is represented in the field, there's always that sort of first step of having to feel like a sense of belonging and feel like a sense of your own self-worth. And I have definitely experienced that through the years. And I'm really lucky in this project to be, my co-lead is also a wonderful and talented woman in STEM named Calvination, and she was a real support throughout this entire process in sort of working together. But I think the most important thing for me feeling comfortable and being able to venture out into an industry like this is having people who could support me for my identity. So one of my first research mentors at Columbia is a very talented astrophysicist named Dr. Melissa Ness. And she was an incredible mentor to me and really helped me build my confidence as not only an astrophysics student, but also as a researcher. And I think that having a great support system has really helped me overcome a lot of the difficulty of sometimes not being taken seriously, or being implied or told that I maybe don't belong in this space. And so for anyone else that's coming into the aerospace industry with a similar sort of background, I think the most important things are to find people who will support you for who you are. For me, that was my parents, that was research mentors who could stand with me through whatever I was going through, and finding that support system, leaning on them, and developing confidence in yourself. So even if the world around you is telling you various things about where you should or should not be, or what you should and should not pursue, that being able to find that meaning and that value within yourself in order to keep going on, because it would be a lie for me to say that it's all been an easy road and I've been taken seriously or felt like I belonged every single moment. And things like imposter syndrome always will creep in, and that's something that even through my undergraduate career still is something that I feel on a daily basis and I think about all the time. And I don't think it's something that ever goes away, but I think that it can be overcome. And I have a lot of hope for the future of not only the aerospace industry, but also fields like engineering and physical sciences, where we still see so many different forms of not only gender imbalance, but also in terms of racial background, disability status, things like that, that the world is becoming more accessible, and it's through the conscious efforts of all of us to help not only make it a better place for our generation, but also for the people who are yet to come.
Yeah, that was really empowering. I do have to say, like, I talk with various people and they always tell me like, oh, I'm the only, girl in a room, or I'm the only person of color in a space conference. And it's funny how we've come so long. There's just so much to go to. And so there's people like you who are really paving the way. So thank you for that. But the rest of you guys also, I'm sure you've had your own set of obstacles, pursuing going into college, going to graduate like Gaurav is. And do you guys have obstacles? Did you guys have obstacles? And if so, how were you guys able to overcome them?
Well, I would perhaps talk a bit about, I've had obstacles finding research positions. I think finding the very first research position that you're going to get is perhaps one of the biggest obstacles if you want to get into any kind of research field, because the first person who's going to look at you, you don't really have experience, you don't really have skills, you don't have any prior knowledge, but they need to be sort of willing to make a gamble on you, take a bet that you're going to be able to, that you have sort of the mindset and the learning and the creativity that's sort of necessary in order to succeed in that kind of setting. And so they're going to have to put in a good number of hours. They're going to have to mentor you in the topic. They're going to have to help you really think like a scientist. And so to find that first research mentor is oftentimes difficult. I got a lot of rejection letters before I finally found a research mentor, actually at Brookhaven National Lab, Dr. David Biersack, who I had taken a couple of previous summer courses with, and he graciously added me on to a research project, and we worked together for a year and a half on this sort of mathematical, sort of statistics, scientific computing research problem that really taught me the ways of how you become an independent research scientist, and how you ask questions, and how you try novel solutions, and how you try all kinds of different technologies in order to succeed at whatever goal you've set for yourself. And what I would add on as a little piece of advice, which I think has become more and more relevant as we've been a part of this pandemic, is that the number of remote opportunities available in general to any group, graduate students, undergraduate, high schoolers, has increased significantly. So you don't need to, as was perhaps traditionally done, relocate yourself to another state or another country in order to finally nab that first research position. You can think really broadly and say, okay, I might be located in Virginia, but is there a university in California that has a remote opportunity for me? Is there something that matches my interest in Montana? Is there something in Iowa? There's all of these different places and spaces now that have become available almost as a result of the pandemic. And I would encourage our listeners, if they're looking to get into this field, to take advantage of that.
Yeah, that's definitely incredible advice. And especially one thing you were saying is how you've had many rejections before finally getting that first offer. And I think that, for me, like, I've been a basketball player since a long time, and I go by the quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So regardless if you were getting rejected or not, you still took that opportunity to go put your application in, or go put your resume, CV in. And I think that's like a step of confidence. So regardless of the number of rejections, just like your advice on just keep going is really powerful. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone?
I can share a little bit of my experience. So even though I am a citizen of the United States, I was born and raised outside the US. So de facto, I'm an international student like Gaurav is. I think that's also the reason why we became very good friends since the very beginning. Like coming to the US from an international perspective, it's somewhat a challenge. To everyone. So first of all, there's a big component, and that's the accent. Again, I would say that people that have an accent are considered a minority to some extent as well, which means that they might be treated differently from the, I would say, mainstream white American man who is known to have been monopolizing the aerospace industry in the last 50, 100 years. But at the same time, I think it's our responsibility to be able to integrate in the American system and do our best in order to be able to succeed, knowing that those are challenges that we have to face. So the first thing that I really realized is that recruiting for an aerospace industry, it's a lot of network, a lot of actually like being able to know people. So. I would say in terms of who is interested in an industrial position rather than a research position, contacting people on LinkedIn or whatever other platform to connect recruiters and engineers together, it's a great way to overcome the initial barriers of being an international student or being raised internationally, and that's the way I kind of like. Try to strategize my own path towards a career in the aerospace industry. I also have received a whole bunch of rejection letters. I can provide the advice that opportunities are out there, so a rejection letter shouldn't bring the morale down. It should instead like give more kind of energy to the candidate to apply to other jobs in other positions, which most likely would be better than one they got rejected from.
Thank you for sharing that, because I feel like a lot of people are really uncomfortable, especially when it comes to talking about like accents or certain, barriers that they've had to, be considered like just this normal, like English speaking person. But really, just like bringing these unique backgrounds is what really makes, this whole Columbia Space Initiative team amazing. Like, I think that your unique experiences that you've had bring in like a whole new lens into any problem you're solving or, just collaborating in a team. So, thank you for sharing that and how you were able to really see that as a strength. And another point that you were mentioning is how like connecting with others. There is this quote that I heard, which is not what you know, it's who you know. Like I feel like that's become really relevant during the pandemic, where you're just virtually, you don't really see anyone face to face, but using social media platforms like LinkedIn, which has been super helpful for me, it's, just connecting with individuals and learning about their work and, potentially applying it to your own life. So that's amazing advice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I would just like to add something about connecting with people. I think connecting with people, talking with them on an individual basis or on LinkedIn will take you ways. Like the first time when I met Alfonso was because he was wearing a jacket which had a logo of a ship on it, and apparently even I had worked in a shipyard, so that's how we like started our conversation. We were in the same class, but because of the pandemic, not many people were like actually talking with each other, because we had to like be careful about it, all everything. But yeah, and after that I was slowly able to integrate with the whole thing, and that's how talking and conversing has gone a long way for me.
Yeah, definitely. You learn so much by talking with other people and just like similar interests, sudden clicks. I know that's like perfect to form that community and group. And so my next question is more related on your like controversial, not really controversial, just opinions on the future of the space industry, and maybe like some things you're excited about, some things you're nervous about. So just like your perspective about space, what do you think space is going to look like in the next, 20, 30 years? And, does that excite you or does that make you nervous? Anybody could take up the question. I know that's a tough one.
Let's get us started. So I think that this is such an amazing and exciting time to be a part of the aerospace industry, because in terms of human space travel, we're really at the precipice of what looks to be a very promising future of commercial space flight. And I think that while a lot of success has already been seen in the capacity for companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic to accomplish amazing feats of engineering in order to get humans into space, there comes alongside that a lot of really important questions and considerations that need to be taken in order for the future of our time in space to be one that is interesting, equitable, and ultimately a success for sort of humanity as a whole. And I think what comes along with all of the excitement of this, the aerospace industry turning so private and so sort of corporatized, is that there needs to be regulations in place in order for, so a fun fact is that rockets actually don't need to be regulated and cannot be regulated by the federal government at the moment. There are laws in place that prevent it from happening until at least 2023 and potentially even longer than that. This has been a law that was passed, I think, over a decade ago and has continued to be extended again and again. And I think that especially at the point that we're at now with the aerospace industry, it's really important for us to make sure that things like human health and safety are really being taken seriously. And alongside that, historically, the kinds of astronauts that NASA has approved for spaceflight have overwhelmingly been sort of male, white, and cis. And that means that we unfortunately do not know enough about how bodies of people who are different than that interact in space. And as a part of, I think, the future of spaceflight, it is both exciting that this process will hopefully be democratized and that this will one day be more accessible to the general public and, you know, not just the people who have $250,000 to shill out on a ticket. And I think a part of that is the excitement that hopefully we'll be able to know how spaceflight affects all different kinds of people, and also that this is going to be an avenue or an opportunity that can really benefit more than just the people who have historically been in the position of astronauts. So I think there's a lot to look forward to, but I think things like regulation on safety things, but also international cooperation on really important questions like who should be sending satellites, how many satellites should we be putting around our Earth, and questions like, well, who gets to put stuff on the moon, who gets to put stuff on Mars. It's really exciting in this sort of new frontier sort of way, but if we look at previous examples of sort of frontier exploration, it's often been also a time of real colonial problems and things like that. And we have the opportunity now. It's early enough for us to learn from the past and sort of prevent ourselves from making those same mistakes. And I think it's really up to all of us to take space as a serious frontier and actually create really strong and forward-thinking ideas in order to protect this very exciting new place.
Yeah, that's, you know, I definitely have to agree with you. I'm personally very excited about the medical advancements that are going to happen with more people going to space, trying to understand, oh, what's really changing in the human body in these diverse, you know, female, male, and even beyond, just different categories of diversity, figuring out what's going on with the human bodies and how we can advance telemedicine as well, as we're planning on sending humans to Mars. You know, how is that going to impact the medical revolution here on Earth as well? I feel like a lot of times people ask the question, why does space actually matter when our planet is, you know, it's like it's becoming in a bad state? Like, we should invest in our planet, not the space industry. Does someone want to maybe like give their perspective on why we should invest in space in order to save our planet?
Absolutely. Investing in space is investing in our planet. The easiest example of this is we all use GPS. It has revolutionized the way that we can travel, and GPS is only possible through satellite data in terms of position tracking. And in addition to that, so many of the advancements that have been revolutionary on Earth have only come due to different spaceflight or NASA-based activities. So a really common example is the water purification system on the International Space Station was so successful and so innovative that it was able to be implemented in a lot of water scarce locations where people don't have access to fresh water as a safe and easier means for them to be able to purify the water around them. So I think that while it is important for us to be working on the things that are happening around us, I think that space is also one of these things that's happening around us. And it would be, I think, to our disadvantage to ignore such a wealth of resource if we continue this mindset that space and Earth are sort of not interconnected in the way that we know it to be.
Yeah, and like even just like the really common example of like the reason we know climate change is happening, the reason we know how our planet is transforming is because of satellites, because of investing in space. When we invest in space, we're not only investing in sending humans to Mars or sending humans to the moon. We're also investing in these technologies of maintaining these satellites, understanding our planet. There's a lot of missions that are sending various technologically advanced satellites up to space to understand our planet better. And understanding different planets will hopefully help us understand the future of our planet and how we can take proactive measures. So really, of course, like Swati was saying, space is the right place to invest for our planet. Does anybody else have any other opinions? Yeah.
So to add to what Swati just said about the fact that investing in space technologies will actually benefit the Earth as well. I was thinking about the way engineering developed in the past 70 years here in the US. Specifically, it was mostly the defense industry and the space industry. Most of the mechanical products and the control products that we see on Earth come from either of the two branches. So at this point, if governments or big private entities or intergovernmental entities will agree to invest a significant amount of money on some novel technology, it'd rather be something related to space exploration, because that's going to benefit all of us rather than defense systems or weapons. So yeah, I definitely think that this investing in space will deter people from investing in weapons and defense on the long term.
Definitely, that's a very good point and very good perspective. Yeah.
I guess I would add that, our investments in space and our understanding of space is directly sort of impacts our understanding of physics and the cosmos. The reason that why we know special relativity is real is because of observations of the way that planets move in space. And so when you tackle big problems, as everyone's been saying, you get all of these sort of small spin-offs and also a deeply fundamental look at the core of who we are and why we're here and what we're actually doing. And as a future goal, I think understanding the cosmos, understanding our own health, understanding sort of these really great challenges and finding great solutions to them will make the future of humanity that much better.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Just understanding, what you were saying, like tackling big problems will help us understand these smaller phenomenons we don't understand. I think that's a really good point. Yeah. And Gaurav, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, as you said, Gitika, that many of the space missions, they aren't only for the planet Moon, the satellite Moon, planet Mars, or to the International Space Station. But if you look at the missions, most of the missions are usually for telecommunication satellites, which is helping people in remote areas and unconnected areas be connected to the internet. Some of them are also in the field of remote sensing and navigation. So these techs are helping agriculture a lot in places. We are able to see if there is desertification happening, how the wetlands are progressing. Some of the missions are also some of the techs may be also about modeling climate change, as you have the data which is constantly coming from different remote sensing satellites. And even though the glamorous part may seem like, oh, we are going to the moon, to the Mars, but at the end, there are also these missions which are very pivotal in our human space exploration. And these things are actually helping back us home. So
Exactly. Yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that, because I think we can all agree that space is important. And so my last and final question for you guys is, what are your future aspirations? Like, do you hope to become an astronaut and go to space, or is there a specific career you want to be a part of? And also, I know you guys gave plenty of advice throughout this interview, but what is one last thing you want to leave everybody with, every young student, middle school, high school, entering college, just advice that you wish someone told you when you were a little younger?
All right, I guess I'll kick it off one last time. So in terms of my future aspirations, I am hoping to continue working on research questions that are related to not only sort of what happens in space, but specifically answering questions of what happens to biological organisms in space, what happens to physical systems in space. So that's kind of broad, but I'm just really interested in the future of not only research questions in space, but also how we conduct research in space, and so what that will look like in the future. Our project right now is innovating in a lot of ways of what kind of data that we can collect and bring back to Earth, because there are so many restrictions on the kinds of research that we can do in space, and I'm really interested in sort of narrowing that divide between what can be done on Earth and what can be done in space. And so that's what I'm interested in. And in terms of advice that I would give to any young student who is interested in space, is that you're never too young to be working on the real deal. So whether that be, reading the stuff that NASA puts out. NASA has such a great content library full of information that is not only just for subject matter experts, but also so many things that are written at the level that can be understood by middle school students, high school students. Basically, no matter your age, they have content that's available for you. And it's really amazing. And even on top of that, there are so many different things that you can be doing from your own home computer, or from just the resources that you have and the knowledge that you have. There are remote telescopes that you can actually control from your computer in order to take images of. And you can use all of those resources in order to study things like the moon from basically just your own computer at home. And there are so many different projects that involve citizen scientists that are perfect for young students. And I think that getting involved in these really tangible ways, beyond just learning things as facts in a classroom, those are what helped me really find my passion and really feel the strength to stick it out through some of the more difficult parts, is just having that perspective in mind of what is actually interesting about this space industry, and what is exciting about doing real research. And so a quick plug is that our own project that's called Carmen, that's flying to the International Space Station, has a huge educational component that we have in addition to just the experiment itself. And we'll be opening up all of the data that we collect to be open source and available through our website, in order for any citizen scientist to be able to perform data analysis in both ways that we can guide you through working on with what we're planning to do with it, but also in new and novel ways, from just students and citizen scientists using the data as a jumping off point for any interesting research questions they have. And so we're interested, all of us here, in inspiring the next generation of scientists, and of specifically space scientists, through helping us study things like antibiotic resistance of bacteria, or RNA expression of bacteria in space. And so we hope that not only will people find these opportunities through big resources like NASA and universities, but also even through smaller things like our own project.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really glad to hear that your project data is going to be released. It's going to be open access. I love how the scientific community is not very like, oh, I'm going to keep everything to myself, but rather we're just building off of each other, which is incredible. So thank you for that advice. Yeah, and I definitely have to also agree about the mentor part, and like, you're never too young to start. A major theme that I really try to stress is start young, really. It's like you can do medical research in middle school. Like I literally just reached out to people on LinkedIn, and they're willing to provide me like research opportunities, or just mentor me throughout like, my experiences to becoming, an aerospace physician, which is what I'm interested in. So really just like reaching out and believing in yourself, because there's people out there who are willing to support you. So that's incredible advice. Thank you.
So I'll go second for the last time. In terms of my future plans, I hope to pursue an MD, PhD, and continue asking many of these questions within bioinformatics and hopefully looking at the bioinformatics of space-related research as well. To add on to Swati's point about our citizen science project, I will put in another plug for that RNA expression project. We will have a whole 7 or 8 part lecture series going through Google Collaboratory notebooks. If you're, a high school or middle school or rising college student or whatnot, Google Collaboratory is a really, really great sort of program to help you get started with programs. If you're interested in machine learning, they provide free GPUs and TPUs, which are very helpful in getting some of those high power computations done. So that's definitely one specific software program you'll want to check out. And it's the one that we'll be utilizing in order to bring our RNA-seq pipelines and explaining the different choices that you have to make as you do trimming, quality control, alignment, et cetera, open to all of you, and to hopefully invite you to join me and all of us on the team within our bioinformatics and analyses and within the field in order to ask the really important questions related to this. In addition, my sort of final piece of advice, if to put it that way, would be that I was incredibly inspired by how this research project and how this team came together. We were remote on Zoom for the entirety of the 2020-2021 school year. We met weekly in order to come up with the biology, in order to come up with the proposal, in order to design the payload, build the payload. And the way that we've worked collaboratively on this research project has been really inspiring. And I thank everybody on the team for making that such a great experience. And I also hope to encourage others to try and form these collaborative teams, because a lot of times you think like, reach out. We need to find a mentor. We need to find somebody with 5 degrees behind their name, and and they'll help me out. But really, your peers, your coworkers, the people who are going to enter this industry with you, or who are going to enter these research fields or these programs, are the ones who are also just as excited as you and just as willing and ready to make a project successful. Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. I definitely have to say I'll be joining your sessions because that sounds really cool. But yeah, thank you for that advice.
So I can go next. I see researchers trying to amplify human knowledge with space research and space contributing to space exploration. My life goal is to make that research happen on an infrastructural basis. So if the research is the brain, the engineer has to be the skeleton and legs. So the way I want to think about it is, we know that research is going to change a lot, and that's something that is very inspiring to me. And I want to follow along that path in order to provide a support system in order to make that happen. So I do definitely want to keep pursuing a technical role within the engineering community, and but definitely, like my final goal is really to help make research in space happen. And I think the SPOCS project has provided me with that perspective, that insightful perspective, where space exploration is not just rockets, it's not just a propulsion system, it's not just a structure, but it's really like the key of it is really the interdisciplinarity of all of the components that are put together in order to like achieve that bigger goal. So that's kind of what I really look forward in terms of my own growth in career-wise. If I have to provide an advice to people, especially to young people, I would say find an inspiring person that will mentor. It doesn't have to be a professor, doesn't have to be someone that has great qualifications academically, but it has a person that should inspire. Could be grandma reading a story about space exploration, It could be a friend, it could be a partner, it could be anyone that will keep the person motivated to pursue their dream and make them understand that it's not just a dream, but it's something that they can actually achieve. Yeah, that's my only advice I have.
Yeah, that you bring up two really great points. One, which I love how space is so interdisciplinary. You can bring in like math, science, so many different subject areas, art together to create this product or develop something or understand the universe better, which is awesome. And also just finding that support system. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mentor in the field you're interested in, but it could be like your parents or, just anyone to just support you and uplift your spirits. So thank you for that advice.
Hi. So as an international student, there's only so much I can do currently in space exploration, but I'll surely draw on from the things which I have learned while working with CSI. And probably I'm looking for a career in product design and development, because we have like really iterated, prototyped on so many things so many times that I think we are kind of learning the knack of it. And a small suggestion which I would like to give to students is, don't let your failures make you feel bad about it. Even if you're like working on your school or high school project, and if that doesn't work when you're kind of presenting it, or that's absolutely fine, because even while we are working now with the whole payload thing, we have some systems, we have like, not gonna lie, we have iterated them at least 8 or 9 times. So I mean, people will think, oh, you made the same thing work, like, but I believe that's how things at the end, that's how you perfect on things. So yeah, that would be my suggestion. Like, not let your failures make you feel bad about anything.
Exactly. It's all a learning process. Like, when you made that first design, but then you improved upon it, which definitely is going to create that successful final product. So I can't wait to see, your mission be successful, as well as seeing the data that you guys collect. So thank you guys so much for taking your time in your busy schedule to really just share your journeys and stories. I was definitely inspired today, and I'm looking forward to your future journeys, and I'm sure many others are going to be inspired. So guys, thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you, Didi.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much.